the fastest mammal in the world is racing toward extinction. A disheartening study published Monday in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that there are only 7,100 cheetahs left in the world. Given the secretive nature of this elusive cat, it has been difficult to gather hard information on the species, leading to its plight being overlooked. The lead author of the study, Dr. Sarah Durant, said in a statement, "Cheetahs are currently considered a vulnerable species on the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species, but the authors of the study conducted by the Zoological Society of London, the Panthera Corporation, and the Wildlife Conservation Society are calling for an urgent recategorization to classify them as endangered." IUCN's current list of vulnerable species includes the African elephant, which number around 400,000. Endangered species include the red panda, whose population is hovering just below 10,000, and the snow leopard, whose population is between 4,500 and 7,000. We've just hit the reset button in our understanding of how close cheetahs are to extinction. Dr. Kim Young-Overton, the Cheetah Program Director for Panthera, a global wildcat conservation organization, said in a statement, "Habitat loss, illegal poaching, the trafficking of cheetahs as exotic pets and humans overhunting their prey have all driven the cheetahs out of 91% of their historic range across Africa and Asia. Asia's population has been especially wiped out, with less than 50 remaining in Iran." Historically, cheetahs have populated Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Pakistan, Iraq, and parts of Turkey, among a handful of other countries across the Asian continent. More than half the current population stretches across 6 countries in southern Africa. As land becomes more dominated by humans outside protected areas, cheetahs suffer from lack of prey in increasingly developed agricultural and urbanized areas, and are persecuted for killing livestock. Young-Overton wrote in an email to the Post, according to the study, 77% of cheetahs live outside of non-protected areas, which are more vulnerable to human threats. In September, the BBC reported that in the last decade, at least 1,200 cheetah cubs have been illegally trafficked as pets from Africa to the Gulf states, and 85% died during the journey. Cheetah populations need to grow at a rate of 10% inside protected areas in order to sustain the drop in non-protected areas, according to Young-Overton. But bushmeat poaching, which severely reduces their prey, and the targeting of their skin or body parts is causing the protected populations to either plateau or decline. In Zimbabwe, the cheetah range decreased 65% in just 16 years, causing a staggering 85% drop in population. Only 170 remained in 2015, down from 1,200 in 1999. The takeaway from this pinnacle study is that securing protected areas alone is not enough. Young-Overton said in the statement, "We must think bigger if we are to avert the otherwise certain loss of the cheetah forever." As we approach the end of 2016, a number of people might be wondering whether there's some chance that the past year was just some sort of weird dream. It turns out that if you ask the scientists, whose job it is to probe the nature of reality, the answer is actually, maybe. Maybe everything that's happening is just a simulation being run on a computer by some smarter, higher-order being with a weird sense of humor. Earlier this year, at the 2016 Isaac Asimov Memorial Debate at the American Museum of Natural History, which addressed the question of whether the universe is a simulation, the esteemed panelists took a stab at explaining how we know about that question. Depending on whether you want reality to be real or not, the answers from some panelists may be more comforting than the responses from others. Physicist Lisa Randall, for example, said that she thought the odds that the universe isn't real are so low as to be effectively zero. A satisfying answer for those who don't want to sit there puzzling out what it would mean for the universe not to be real, to be sure. But on the other hand, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, who was hosting the debate, said that he thinks the likelihood of the universe being a simulation may be very high. The question of whether we know that our universe is real has vexed thinkers going far back into history, long before Descartes made his famous "I think, therefore I am" statement. The same question has been explored in modern science fiction films, like The Matrix and David Cronenberg's Existence, but most physicists and philosophers agree that it's impossible to prove definitively that we don't live in a simulation, and that the universe is real. Tyson agrees, but says that he wouldn't be surprised if we were to find out somehow that someone else is responsible for our universe. One of the main arguments arguments that physicists use to talk about what's known as the simulation hypothesis is that if we can prove that it's possible to simulate a universe, if we can figure out all the laws that govern how everything works, which physicists are trying to do, that makes it much more likely that it is actually simulated. If we know that it's possible to do something, it's much easier to think that thing is being done. We haven't been able to figure out how to simulate a universe yet, but it's not too hard to imagine that some other creature out there is far smarter than us. Tyson points out that we humans have always defined ourselves as the smartest beings alive, orders of magnitude more intelligent than species like chimpanzees that share close to 99% of our DNA. We can create symphonies and do trigonometry and astrophysics, some of us, anyway. But Tyson uses a thought experiment to imagine a life form that's as much smarter than us as we are than dogs, chimps, or other terrestrial mammals. What would we look like to them? We would be drooling, blithering idiots in their presence, he says. Whatever that being is, it very well might be able to create a simulation of a universe. And if that's the case, it is easy for me to imagine that everything in our lives is just the creation of some other entity for their entertainment, Tyson says. Him saying, the day we learn that it is true, I will be the only one in the room saying, I'm not surprised. And maybe that means there's some chance of doing a reset at some point. Researchers in Japan suggest there's a surprising neurological reason why people avert their gaze occasionally during conversation. Reporting in the journal Cognition, they write that eye contact actually disrupts resources available to cognitive control processes during verb generation. In other words, when you need to come up with certain words under certain circumstances, maintaining eye contact depletes the very brain resources you need to find the word, so you look away. To test this, the researchers asked 26 participants to make eye contact with a computer-generated face while playing a word association game, reports Business Insider. Looking at the face didn't seem to interfere with their ability to come up with verbs easily associated to nouns, like the word scissors, prompting the person to think of cut. But when nouns were more difficult, for example, if they had too many associations or were a little obscure, it took participants longer to think of the verb while maintaining that eye contact. As a posted science alert sums up, while making eye contact and holding a conversation is certainly possible. This is evidence that they can both draw on the same pool of cognitive resources, and sometimes that pool starts to run a little dry. The researchers didn't parse out possible cultural influences, but Scientific American suggests that if looking away while thinking is cross-cultural, perhaps cultures with less emphasis on eye contact enable deeper thinking during a given conversation. Eye contact is forbidden in a certain Minnesota locale,